As good as electric cars are for urban transport, there's none on sale that makes sense as proper family cars. They're either horribly small and flimsy, like the G-Whiz, or rather pricey, like the Mitsubishi iMeave. But this could change everything.
The Nissan Leaf. It looks just like a normal car, and that's exactly why it's such a revolution. This could be the first ever electric car that normal people can actually use.
Now, radically for an electric car, it's got a spacious interior, a roomy boot, and a full safety kit. And thanks to the government's £5,000 subsidy for electric cars, it costs a reasonable £24,000. And this is no special prototype. This goes on sale next March.
Today, I'm in Lisbon, finding out if the Leaf is revolutionary enough to make us all think about ditching piston power and going electric. As this is fifth gear, I'll start with how it drives.
Well, I'm no tiff, so there'll be no sideways drifting action, I'm afraid, but I can say it's refined, comfortable, and relaxing. It really does drive like a proper, grown-up petrol car. The electric motor produces 108 brake horsepower, which means you can do 0 to 62 in about 12 seconds, and you have a top speed of 90 miles an hour. And that's not exactly hot hatch pace, but because the electric motor gives maximum torque through its whole range, it actually feels quite nippy. I think it would give the kids something to scream about in the back. Dad, slow down! And don't think because it runs off batteries that Nissan have skimped on equipment. Bluetooth, sat-nav, climate control, electric windows, they all come as standard.
In fact, the biggest difference between driving a normal car and a Leaf is the silence. It's so quiet that Nissan have given the Leaf an artificial whirring noise at low speeds, just so pedestrians can hear you coming.
Funny whirring noise aside, there's nothing about the way the Leaf drives should put off normal family car buyers.
But the next issue might. Range. This is the biggest hurdle for anyone thinking of ditching petrol in favour of electric.
Now, Nissan claim that the Leaf has about a 100-mile range, and judging from my experience driving it today, I think that's pretty fair. Unlike a petrol car, you can't, of course, refill it in a couple of minutes. You either have to charge it overnight for about 8 hours, or you can recharge it in much less time, about 20 minutes, at any one of 100 fast charging stations.
Nissan say 80% of the UK's drivers average less than 30 miles a day. And for those 80% on an average day, the Leaf's range won't cause a problem. So while the car's enjoying a quick top-up, let's talk about emissions. This isn't as simple as you think.
Now, the CO2 argument, carbon. You see, Nissan claim this car is a zero-emissions vehicle. When you drive it along the road, nothing comes out the back. There is no tailpipe. But then people get really upset because they say, where does the electricity come from? Which is a very good question. So if you take into account the mix of our national grid, how we produce the energy, the electricity, we burn a lot of coal, we burn a lot of oil and natural gas, and that releases carbon. So if you do the maths, and people have done it, this car in fact produces about between 80 and 100 grams of CO2 per kilometre it's driven. So then you think, well, that's not much better than a petrol car. But, and this is a really important point, if you take the entire journey of the oil to petrol, then you come up with a figure of between 300 and 500 grams of CO2 per kilometre for a petrol car. This car, at the very worst, produces 100. End of argument as far as I'm concerned.
So where does that leave us? Is the Leaf really revolutionary enough to make us all go electric?
Well, I think it is. I mean, it's just as easy and refined to drive as a normal car. It costs about £2 to recharge it. It's tax and congestion charge free. It's much greener to drive, and it costs about as much as a similarly spec'd Golf.
As with every electric car, you still need to take into account its range. But that's it.
This is the first electric car that does a convincing job of just being a normal car. There's no ridiculous price tag, there's no flimsy build quality. It's just a smartly designed, brilliantly engineered piece of family transport that also happens to be incredibly cheap to run.
Next time on